coms, Darren here with another episode of Case of the Monies. Let's check out this week's case.
This week's word is ontologist.
Ontology is a branch of metaphysics that deals with philosophical study of being, becoming, existence, and reality. What is reality? What is existence? To understand our real consciousness, to see how we can move and understand our thoughts, our memories, our actions, to be able to move our bodies and understand the past, the present, and the future, where we were and where we're going as a human species. How do we know that we're not just like fish in a pond, understanding just the world around us, and that's it, that there's nothing else beyond us? The simplest way that we can attest to this is through dreaming. Think about this for a second. 1/3 of our lives we spend sleeping. And our brainwaves are more active when we're dreaming than when we're awake. Unless you're one of the 40% of people who snore, and when you're snoring, you can't actually dream. There's a very interesting parallel between what we call our real life and our dream life. For example, every single face you've ever seen in a dream, you've actually seen somewhere in real life. And on top of that, if you sleep in a cooler room, you tend to sleep better. However, you tend to have more bad dreams or nightmares. What is a nightmare? It's our fears. It's our brain fabricating a crazy, fantastical story where there's going to be people talking to us and circumstances happening to us, and we believe that all of this is real. And then in one moment, we wake up and realize it's just a dream. Or is it? Imagine if our lives were just like a dream, and one day we would wake up. These were the ideas put forth by some of the greatest philosophers of all time. Names like Socrates, Plato, Thomas Aquinas, and Aristotle, who came up with the current model that we use today as the 5 senses that we understand our current existence. Our eyes can do some amazing things. 20/20 vision means that we can read letters from 20 feet away. If we have 20/100 vision, we have to be 4 times as close. And the world record was set in 1985 by Dennis Levy, who could see a clear line of brightness from a mile away. And no, watching TV too close or reading things in dim light is not gonna wreck your eyesight. But it is true that we are all born colorblind. However, 5% of men today still have effects of this color blindness. And just like we have 2 eyes to view things 3-dimensionally, we also have 2 ears to hear from every direction. Unless you just finished a big meal, which temporarily dulls your hearing. This isn't the easiest way to teach a toddler. Researchers are now saying that 90% of the words that children learn are from background conversations. So I'd be careful of what you say. Smell is the most sensitive of all the senses. Did you know that after a year we have a 65% remembrance of smell, whereas our visual recall is only about 50% after 3 months? Also, we taste about 75 to 95% through our smell. 1/4 of people are super tasters and have a lot more taste buds, while another 1/4 of people have a lot fewer buds. As you get older, you tend to generate a lot less buds, and this is why older people tend to like spicier and saltier foods. Skin is the largest organ of the human body, and when you take off a glove to challenge someone to a duel, it's not to gain more sensitivity in the fingertips. Although the fingertips, the soles of your feet, the lips and the neck are the most sensitive parts of the body, and the least would be the middle of your back. Now, along with these major 5 senses, we can enunciate a few other major senses that some people aren't aware of, such as the sense of hot and cold. We also have a good sense of balance, pain, of hunger, and thirst, and puke. And itch, when you feel that tingling sensation all over your body, and you just need to scratch. Another example would be time. Did you know if you ask most adults to time for 3 minutes, they'll usually be off by only about 3 seconds? Now, how many of you just scratched when I said itch? Now imagine if you lost all 5 of these senses. If you were stuck with all the same thoughts and experiences that you had from the past, but nothing new, then the only existence you have is dreaming, going back to sleep. But imagine if you were born this way and you had no previous experiences. What would your reality be? Fortunately, to date, there hasn't been a single human that's lost all 5 senses. It's rare to even lose 1 or 2. There is a couple of ways that we can experience the loss of all of our senses. There's 3 of them. The first would be through sleeping, right before you enter the dream stage. The second one would be through anesthesia. And the third would be through death. This leads to a lot of philosophical debate. There's a lot of religions, a lot of beliefs, and a lot of different understandings of what happens to us after we're dead. Do we just experience nothingness? Do we go up into heaven? Are we greeted by friends and family? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? A lot of people claim to know when the end of the world is, or even know the date that they're going to die. There's websites out there like thedeathclock.com that'll tell you its prediction of when it thinks you're going to die. But fortunately or unfortunately for us, we don't actually know the true date that we're going to perish. In 360, Plato wrote a book called Republic, in which a man by the name of died in battle, his soul rose up and got judged before being drawn back into his body. Now, these near-death experiences have been recorded all throughout history, from the most questionable all the way to the most profound. No one really knows the truth. After World War II, there was 2 men who were injured in battle. They had to share the same hospital room. Now, they couldn't move and they couldn't sit up, and the only company they had were each other. Now, one of the men had fluid in his lung, and each morning the nurses would help him sit up and drain it for about an hour. The rest of the day they spent chatting together about good old times, about vacations and their old families and where they lived and what they did. Eventually this became routine for them, and the first man would sit up, look out his window, and describe the beauty of the outside world to the other man. He would describe the pond, and he'd describe the trees and the colors they'd change. He'd see star-crossed lovers holding hands and kissing in the park below. And he described this in great detail, and eventually the second man grew to love the experience of this 1 hour in the morning. Now this went on for about a year, until one day the man by the window passed away in his sleep. And the other man asked to be moved to his bed. He didn't have much energy, but one day he used everything he had to be able to prop himself up and peer outside the window for the very first time. And what he saw shocked him. He looked at a blank wall. And when he called the nurse in, he asked her, "This man has been describing the most beautiful things to me for the last year of what he's seen out this window." And the nurse turned to him and said, "That's not possible. That man was blind." Our reality is not solely created through what we see, smell, taste, touch, and hear, but is shaped through the impact, understanding, and information of others. If this is truly some form of a dream, then maybe we all need to wake up and realize our true reality.